the festival where Athenian women presented a woven peplos to Athena. Some older scholars argue that the resemblance is so close they assumed an Athenian editor had simply inserted it into the story, but other scholars think it's not unlike what we see in Mycenaean religion, with female offering processions being one of the oldest motifs in both Minoan and Mycenaean art. So even if a later editor added anachronisms to the scene, there might be an earlier substrate to it. A third line of evidence is religious vocabulary. Much of classical Greek religious vocabulary is found in the Linear B tablets. For example, the root sphag, meaning to slaughter. The most important sanctuary at Pylos is literally named Sphagianes, the place of slaughter. There's also the priest titled Sphagius, the sacrificer. Priests and priestesses also received animal hides as their honorary portion, and the tablets call that portion a geros, the exact word that classical Greeks used 1,000 years later for a priest's share. So scholars like Dr. Lupac argue that yes, the state cult died with the palace bureaucracies, and of course there were changes. Whole gods vanished, new myths were composed, but the religion underneath it on a more local and communal level carried on. As she puts it, a good deal of the way the Mycenaeans practiced their cult would have been familiar to someone in the archaic and classical periods. So were the critics right about Matt Damon's helmet? Sure. Wrong helmet off by 5 centuries. And Homer makes the same kind of mistake constantly. Iron Age funerals, Iron Age temples, a renovated Iron Age pantheon. Religion in the Iliad and Odyssey often reflects a half-remembered past in the costumes of Homer's own era. But we also sometimes get striking similarities. As the historian Berit Hildebrandt writes, the decipherment of the Mycenaean Linear B tablets have made clear that the Homeric epics have astonishing parallels to Bronze Age material culture. But at the same time, vast worlds lie between the Mycenaean palace kingdoms and the world that Homer describes. Homer was assembling a Bronze Age world out of fragments, ruined palaces he could still see in his own landscape, gods still worshipped with rituals handed down by his ancestors. Maybe he even saw a boar's tusk helmet held onto as a family heirloom. So I don't blame him for getting a few things wrong. Keeping a literary world consistent is very hard. If you've ever tried to build a world of your own, whether for a novel or a D&D campaign, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Which is why I want to tell you about today's sponsor, World Anvil. World Anvil is an all-in-one world-building toolset that helps you create, store, and organize your own fictional universe. And it's used by millions of novelists, tabletop gamers, and world builders. If you're a fantasy novelist, you know the challenge. You've got maybe a dozen characters, 3 royal dynasties, a magic system, and 4,000 years of history to keep track of. World Anvil fixes this with a rich, interactive world bible. You can write articles for your characters, cities, and myths, and World Anvil automatically links them all together. There's a family tree builder for tracking dynasties and interactive timelines so you always know what happened when, and a distraction-free writing tool with your full outline and world bible just a click away. World Anvil is also great if you're a game master. I've recently gotten to D&D, my character is a half-elf ranger named Honorius, because late Roman names don't get enough credit, and I have a newfound respect for dungeon masters, because they're tracking dozens of NPCs, improvising lore on the spot, and somehow remembering what my character did 3 sessions ago when I don't. Well, World Anvil doubles as the ultimate RPG campaign manager, with support for over 45 RPG systems. It keeps your NPCs, monsters, and locations in one searchable database, and with their interactive map tool, you can link your countries, cities, and dungeons, and chart your character's journey along the way. It's a great tool set for all of you world builders. To sign up, go to worldanvil.com using my link in the description below, and use my code RFB to get 51% off any premium subscription. Learn to read the Hebrew Bible in its original language with Dr. Kip Davis. Sign up at religiondepartment.com/Book of Jonah. This is one of the most controversial images in all of biblical archaeology. It's scratched onto the surface of a large storage jar discovered in an ancient Israelite site called Kuntulet Ajrud, which is located in the Sinai Peninsula. It depicts 2 squat figures standing side by side, and scrawled above them in ancient Hebrew is an inscription reading, "I bless you by Yahweh of Samaria, and by his Asherah." Wait a minute. His Asherah? Now, Asherah was a goddess, one of the most important goddesses in the ancient Near East. In Canaanite mythology, she was the consort of the high god El and the mother of the gods. She was linked with fertility, motherhood, and sacred trees. But apparently, she was not confined to Canaanite religion. The Hebrew Bible constantly criticizes ancient Israelites for worshipping Asherah, setting up sacred poles called Asherahs, and even putting an image of the goddess in the temple in Jerusalem itself. So we already knew that she had a foothold in Israelite practice, but all of this comes from her critics. This inscription instead gives us a glimpse into her Israelite followers speaking for themselves, and multiple inscriptions at this site pair the god of Israel with Asherah in the same breath, which might suggest that at least some ancient Israelites believed that the god of Israel had a divine consort just like El in Canaanite religion. So who was Asherah, and was she really the wife of the god of Israel? Now, outside of the Bible, we have a much clearer picture for Asherah as a specific goddess, especially in a collection of texts discovered at Ugarit, an ancient Canaanite city on the coast of what's now Syria. It was likely at its height from roughly 1550 BCE until around 1200 BCE, when the kingdom collapsed. One of many city-states that fell in the late Bronze Age collapse of the 12th century BCE. Here, archaeologists uncovered a royal library of clay tablets dating to roughly the 13th and 12th centuries BCE. They were composed in Ugaritic, a Semitic language closely related to Hebrew, and among these texts is a mythological drama called the Baal Cycle, which tells the story of the storm god Baal and his ascent to kingship over the gods. And Asherah appears in this story, though under the Ugaritic form of her name, Atharat. Same goddess, different language. In the Baal Cycle, Atharat appears as the consort of El, who, as I mentioned, was the high god in the Canaanite pantheon, who presides over the gods. El is the patriarch, Atharat is his queen. Together they generated the gods. Multiple times in these texts, she's called the creatress of the gods, and the mother of the 70 divine sons. In one Ugaritic epic, she's called the wet nurse of the gods. So she's not a mother goddess or fertility figure in a generic sense. Her motherhood is specifically linked with royalty and divinity. She is the queen of the high god, and the mother of these gods called the 70 sons. She's also a powerful god in her own right. She's called the Lady of the Sea, and the lady who tramples the sea serpent, which some scholars argue may preserve a memory of an older form of the goddess who had some role ordering the cosmos. She most prominently appears in Act 2 of the Baal Cycle, in a scene when Baal sets out to build his royal palace after defeating the sea god Yam. A king without a palace is a king without a throne, so Baal and the goddess Anat try to strong-arm El into granting permission to build it, but they fail. So Baal and Anat have to go to Atharat, commissioning the craftsman god Kothar Wahasis to forge gold and silver gifts to win her over. But when she sees Baal and Anat approaching, she's terrified, afraid that they've come to slaughter her 70 sons, though the gifts calm her down and she agrees to help. She rides to El and successfully petitions him for permission to build Baal's palace. She says, "Our king is mightiest Baal, our ruler with none above him." But she laments that Baal has no house like the gods, no court like Atharat's children. El is persuaded and agrees. Let a house be built for Baal like the gods, a court like Atharat's children. So the palace gets built and Baal becomes king. And from this we see that Atharat is a big deal, and the most important political moment in the Baal Cycle, the moment that establishes Baal's kingship. Atharat is the kingmaker, and this actually happens again later in the story when Baal is consumed by the god of death Mot. El asks Atharat who should succeed him, and she names her own son, Othtar. She is functionally the one who decides who sits on the divine throne. So Asherah in Ugaritic mythology is a queen, a kingmaker, the wife of the high god El, and the mother of his divine sons. And just as the storm god Baal has a much longer history under a different name, Hadad, stretching back to the early Bronze Age, the goddess we meet as Atharat at Ugarit also has deep roots in ancient Near Eastern history, though under slightly different names. About 600 or 700 years before the Baal Cycle, we find a goddess in Babylonian sources named Ashratum, who's the consort of the god Amaru, the chief deity of the Amorites, a West Semitic people in Syria. In these sources, she's called the bride of the king of heaven and mistress of sexual vigor and rejoicing. A form of her was also worshipped by the Hittites in Anatolia. So the bottom line is Asherah was not born as a Canaanite goddess. By the time she appears in the Baal Cycle around the 1200s BCE, she was already worshipped for centuries across the Near East and Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia, from Babylon to the Syrian steppe to the coast of Lebanon, but also in the kingdoms of Judah and Israel. So let's return to the ancient Israelites. The Hebrew word Asherah appears 40 times across the Hebrew Bible, though oftentimes the term is ambiguous. A few passages clearly name a goddess, like in 1 Kings 18, where we hear about 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Queen Jezebel's table. This only makes sense if Asherah is a deity with her own priesthood, but biblical authors also describe something that sounds more like a cultic object. For example, in Deuteronomy 16, "You shall not plant any tree as an Asherah, nor shall you set up a stone pillar," things that the Lord your God hates. So from the very start, we're dealing with a word that can, on one hand, refer to a divine being or an object set up at a place of worship. And scholars over the years have debated how we should untangle these two meanings. The majority of the references to an Asherah object come from what scholars call the Deuteronomistic history, the editorial framework that shapes the books of Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. And this framework is overwhelmingly hostile. It basically judges every king of Israel and Judah on a single criterion. Did he tolerate the Asherahs or destroy them? Though, as is often the case, that hostility is itself a clue. You don't repeatedly forbid what nobody is doing. Asherah, or at least Asherah objects, apparently were a persistent, deeply embedded presence in Israelite religion. Judges chapter 6. God tells Gideon to tear down his father's altar to Baal and the Asherah beside it. 1 Kings 15. King Asa removes his grandmother Maacah from the position of queen mother because she made an abominable image for the Asherah. 2 Kings 21. King Manasseh places a carved image of Asherah inside the temple of God itself, which presumably stood there for roughly half a century. Manasseh's roughly 50-year reign from about 687 to 642 BCE. This hostility reaches a climax, though, under the reign of King Josiah. According to the book of 2 Kings, Josiah came to power around 640 BCE, and in the 18th year of his reign, around 622 BCE, his priests report that they discovered a book of the law inside the temple. A lot of scholars identify this as an early version of the book of Deuteronomy, and when Josiah hears what's in this book, he tears his clothing in anguish, because according to this book, almost everything happening in Israelite religion is wrong. What follows is an immense, sweeping religious reform and purge all over the kingdom of Judah, with Asherah at the center. 2 Kings 23:4. Josiah commands the high priest to bring out of the temple of the Lord all the vessels made for Baal, for Asherah, and for all the host of heaven. He burned them outside Jerusalem. 2 verses later, he brought out the Asherah from the house of the Lord, outside Jerusalem, burned it, beat it to dust, and threw the dust of it upon the graves of the common people. 1 verse later, he broke down the houses of the male cult prostitutes that were in the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings for the Asherah. So if we're taking this passage at face value, apparently organized worship of Asherah was being conducted through guilds of women operating within the temple in Jerusalem itself, presumably for generations. Also, Asherah cultic sites were apparently all over the kingdom until Josiah tore it all down. Overall, 2 Kings describes Josiah's reforms as a kingdom-wide demolition project, destroying sacred places, smashing altars and standing stones, and cutting down Asherahs throughout the land. Scholars debate exactly how much of this account is historical and how much of it is later embellishment, but most scholars do agree that some kind of reform movement was underway in the late 600s BCE, aimed at centralizing worship in Jerusalem and enforcing exclusive devotion to the God of Israel. Okay, so since a lot of this demolition project was aimed against Asherah objects, let's dig into what those were. It's commonly understood that an Asherah, lowercase a as a common noun, refers to some kind of wooden object. The verbs used to destroy it are tree verbs. Cut down, burn, pull up. Deuteronomy 16:21 says you can plant one. So we're talking about something installed in the ground that is made of wood. It's also something linked with cultic sites, what the Bible calls high places, or bamot, usually next to a standing stone or an altar. The standard formula, repeated almost word for word across Kings, describes the people of Israel building high places, pillars, and sacred poles at every high hill and under every green tree. A standing stone is exactly what it sounds like, an upright stone set into the ground. ground, sometimes rough and unworked, and sometimes carved smooth. Archaeologists have found them all over the southern Levant, often in pairs or rows, sometimes flanking an altar. They mark the presence of a god without depicting one, and that's kind of the point. Across much of the ancient Near East, gods were depicted as statues, Baal in his warrior pose, El on his throne, but in this region, divinity was also often signaled by something abstract like a stone. No face, no artistry, like the stone doesn't show you the god, but it does show you that the god is there. The same logic may apply to an Asherah. A planted pole may have been understood as a marker of her presence, but beyond that, things are murky. As the scholar Judith Hadley has pointed out, the biblical references to Asherahs are not really consistent with each other. Different books describe different things. Sometimes the Asherah seems to be an actual living tree, and sometimes it seems to be tree-like that you could put into a ground, like a carved wooden pole or maybe even a stylized tree. And throughout the region, scholars have found a deep iconographic tradition linking a goddess with a sacred tree, though it's hard to say if this evidence is specifically linked to Asherah. Consider this terracotta image found in central Israel. It dates to about 1250 BCE, late Bronze Age Canaan, around the time the Israelites were emerging as a distinct people. The plaque shows a nude female figure, frontally posed, and on her thighs, etched into clay, are stylized trees. She's clearly some kind of divine mother figure, and scholars argue she could be Asherah, but she also could be some other Canaanite fertility figure, though note that the goddess is fused with sacred trees. A few decades later, around 1200 BCE, we get an even more direct clue, painted on the side of a clay jug from Lachish, a major Canaanite city and later Israelite city in the Judean foothills. The jug itself is unremarkable, the kind of thing you'd find in any late Bronze Age household, but around its shoulder runs paintings, animals flanking a stylized tree, mostly ibexes, and just above the tree, scratched into the clay, is a short dedicatory inscription. Roughly it reads, "A gift, an offering to my lady Elat." Elat means the goddess, the feminine form of El, and is considered an epithet of Asherah. Scholars such as Judith Hadley argue it's unlikely to be a coincidence that the word Elat is positioned directly above the tree. 2.5 centuries later, similar iconography shows up on this, the so-called Tanakh cult stand. It was discovered at Tel Tanakh, an ancient city in the Jezreel Valley, and it dates to the 10th century BCE, the era of the early Israelite kingdoms. The stand is about 53 centimeters tall, roughly the size of a small lamp. It's a hollow rectangular box of clay decorated in 4 stacked tiers. The bottom tier shows a nude female figure flanked by 2 lions. The third tier shows a stylized sacred tree with curling branches flanked by 2 ibexes. Notice the same animal we saw on the Lachish vessel. And on the outer flanks of this tier, lions appear again. The second tier shows 2 sphinxes guarding a blank space, and the top tier shows the sun disk above a 4-legged animal, maybe a horse. Now, scholars debate the details of how we should interpret this. The most influential reading came from the late archaeologist Ruth Hestron, who argued the stand depicts a goddess in 2 modes, once as a woman and once as a tree, alongside a non-iconic representation of the God of Israel on the 2 other tiers, the empty space between the sphinxes and the sun disk on the top. More recently, scholars such as Brian Doak have argued that the entire stand may depict a single goddess, with no male deity present at all. He doesn't think it's Asherah, though other scholars such as Judith Hadley do argue it represents Asherah. It's really hard to say anything definitive from all this archaeological evidence, though. The plaque might be Asherah or not, the Tanakh cult stand might depict her in 2 registers or some other goddess, or not. Each one of these objects has scholars on both sides of the debate. Though for a lot of scholars, including some of the leading scholars who focus on Asherah, such as Judith Hadley, the iconographic evidence suggests that from the 13th century BCE, Asherah's symbol was a stylized tree, which might provide some context to the confusing merging of object and goddess that we see throughout the Hebrew Bible. Though that distinction might not matter as much as it sounds. Scholars such as Saul Olian have argued that we really shouldn't view the goddess and her symbol as separate things. To worship the Asherah pole was to worship the goddess. To set it up was to install her, and to cut it down was to drive her out. The 2 meanings of the word, uppercase Asherah and lowercase Asherah, aren't really separate, in the same way a standing stone shows the presence of the god. Another possible line of evidence for widespread goddess worship in ancient Israelite religion are these, the so-called Judean pillar figurines. In domestic contexts across Judah, archaeologists have found small clay female figurines, lots of them. Well over 1,000 have been excavated. Each one is fairly small, usually 4 to 8 inches tall, with a pillar-shaped lower body, no legs, and prominent breasts supported by the arms. The heads are either low definition, pinched by hand, or high definition made from a mold. Most of them date to the 8th and 7th centuries BCE, the very same period when the inscriptions at Kuntulet Ajrud were being written. While there are a lot of them, their geographic spread is quite limited, found almost entirely in sites within ancient Judah's borders, not outside them. Hundreds have come from Jerusalem alone, with large numbers at other major Judahite cities like Mizpah, Lachish, and Beersheba. So what are they? Well, surprise, surprise, scholars don't agree. Scholars such as William Deaver identify them with Asherah. The pillar-shaped lower body, he argues, evokes a tree trunk, the Asherah pole in miniature form. Her prominent breasts evoke her maternal role as the wet nurse of the gods, as she's called in the Ugaritic literature. For him, these figurines are the physical evidence of what he calls the folk religion of ancient Israel, a religion practiced by ordinary people and households, alongside the official worship of God in the temple. The scholar John Holliday remarked that there is only one major goddess known to Judah during the later part of the Iron Age II period, the goddess Asherah. So the association in his mind is not a huge leap in logic. Though in her 2014 study interpreting Judean pillar figurines, the archaeologist Erin Darby pushes back on this interpretation. She argues the figurines may have functioned primarily as protective magical objects used in household ritual, possibly tied to protection during childbirth, illness, and other crises, and they might not represent any specific goddess at all. For her, the equation figurine with breasts equals female nurturing goddess equals goddess in the Bible contains way too many leaps in logic. Her findings are strengthened by the fact that in ancient Near Eastern rituals, figurines tended to represent low-level intermediary entities, not high gods. So rather than asking which goddess does this depict, she asks, based on known rituals, what did people actually do with this object and why? More recently, the scholar Lauren McCormick has been studying these figurines with digital imaging technology. Dr. McCormick uses techniques like reflectance transformation imaging, decorrelation stretch, and photogrammetry in order to detect tool marks and faint traces of paint. As a postdoc at Princeton, McCormick designed a web exhibit to make 3D models and other digital reconstructions publicly available. Link here is on screen if you want to check it out. And when rendered in color, McCormick found that the figurine's eyes, and not their breasts, were the most carefully crafted feature. Her dissertation, after all, was titled, "My Eyes Are Up Here." Her work shows figurine eyes to be dynamic, with pupils that look larger from the sides than they do from the front, as if they are alive and watching. McCormick connects supernatural sight with the figurine's non-human lower body to argue the figurines were hybrid creatures, kind of like beings like the cherubim, rather than portraits of a goddess. Having them in your home gave access to divine power without necessarily specifying whose divine power. So Darby and McCormick find that in common, and these figurines' concentration in the Kingdom of Judah, the heartland of the temple cult in Jerusalem, raises the possibility that they operated within a broadly Yahwistic religious world. But whose divine world they inhabited is not as clear as the intermediary function they played. So we really don't know who these figurines are supposed to be. They might represent a generic protective female divine presence, they might be hybrid supernatural beings, neither goddess nor human, and they might have served different purposes for different users in different moments. But whatever these figurines are, they're in and around Judahite houses by the hundreds, in wall niches, under floors, in domestic and public spaces alike. And while William Deaver calls this the tale of two religions, official theology versus lived church practice, that framing assumes state religion was unified around Yahweh alone, when the biblical authors repeatedly make clear that multiple deities and practices were incorporated into Israelite worship. And if the people who kept these figurines didn't experience them as a departure from the worship of the God of Israel, the popular versus official setup isn't so helpful. The figurines don't really look like evidence of a parallel religion running beneath official worship. Instead, it's a glimpse into what Yahwistic household practice might have looked like in all its complexity, which gives us some context for King Josiah's reforms. What the Bible frames as apostasy looks archaeologically like ordinary Iron Age religion. Across the Levant, people worshipped at local shrines, kept household figurines, set up poles and standing stones, and honored multiple gods depending on the need. Israelites, by every indication, did the same. Which brings us finally to the inscription we started with and the initial question. What was Asherah's relationship to the God of Israel? This inscription was discovered at Kuntilat Ajrud, a hilltop site in the northeastern Sinai. It was located above an ancient road system that linked the Mediterranean coast to the Gulf of Aqaba. Caravans heading from Gaza to Eilat would have passed through here, as would travelers moving between Egypt and the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. The site dates to roughly the late 9th or early 8th century BCE, the time of the ancient Israelite kingdoms, and most scholars think it functioned as a kind of fortified way station, a place where travelers and traders could water their animals and maybe leave an offering before continuing on. When archaeologists excavated the site in the 1970s, they uncovered several Hebrew inscriptions that give us a window into ancient Israelite religion. Some mention the God of Israel alongside other Canaanite gods, including Baal and El, though as we've seen, several inscriptions pair the god of Israel and Asherah specifically. One inscription on the wall of a shrine reads, "To Yahweh of Teman and to his Asherah." Teman possibly refers to Edom, the region southeast of Judah and what's now southern Jordan and the northern Negev desert. Two more inscriptions were found on large storage jars in a small room near the entrance. One again references Yahweh of Teman and Asherah, though the other is the inscription we started with, the two squat figures with "I bless you by Yahweh of Samaria and by his Asherah." It's worth mentioning that there's one other Asherah inscription that was found about 250 miles to the northeast. This was found in a Judahite burial cave near Hebron. This one dates to around 750 BCE and reads, "Blessed be Uriyahu by Yahweh, and by his Asherah. From his enemies he saved him." Similar formula, hundreds of miles apart. Now, scholars have heavily debated all of this, especially the figures on the storage jar. Some scholars propose they represent the Egyptian god Bes, who is linked with protection, fertility, and household ritual. Pointing in favor of this interpretation, some have argued that the drawing and the inscription may not even be related, since they were apparently made at two different times. Who knows how long apart? Days, months, maybe years? Regardless, they might just be unrelated graffiti on a shared piece of pottery, though others argue we're looking at an image and a caption, that the god of Israel is the male figure on the left, and Asherah is either the figure on the right or the figure seated here in the background playing some sort of stringed instrument. Scholars in this camp agree that they look like Bes, but they argue Bes-style imagery was actually borrowed and reused for a range of other gods. In Egypt itself, this kind of figure could stand in for deities like Horus or Baal. And outside Egypt, the imagery seems to function more loosely, a kind of all-purpose image for any god. Though in 2016, the scholar Ryan Thomas published a long, detailed article in the Journal of Ancient Near Eastern Religions arguing that the drawing and the inscription belong together. His argument has several layers, so let me walk you through each step. The first concerns the sex of the figures. Earlier scholars debated whether both might be male or both might be androgynous depictions of Bes. Thomas, though, drawing on more recent analysis of the image, points out that a smudge between the right figure's legs, that some had read as a penis, was actually just soot. Once that was removed, the right figure has clear breasts, jewelry on her arms and ankles, a smaller stature, and no male anatomy. The left figure has the opposite. Male anatomy, larger build, no breasts. So one figure is male, the other is female. The second layer of his argument is the pose. Thomas notes that the male is positioned slightly in front of the female, partially overlapping her, while she stands behind him on a higher ground line. He argues this is the standard convention for depicting a husband and wife. The dominant male foregrounded, his consort behind him, slightly smaller, both facing forward as a single unit. In other words, Thomas is arguing that the artist has drawn the two figures the way ancient artists depicted married couples. The third layer is the most original part of his argument, arguing the iconography actually does not fit Bes. The figures are kind of animalistic. They have rectangular heads, large narrow snouts, large nostrils, big ears, and hind legs with what appears to be the hock joint of a cattle leg. So they're cattle-like humanoid figures, which might link to what the Hebrew Bible tells us, that the Israelites worshiped the God of Israel as a calf. Aaron makes a golden calf at Sinai. King Jeroboam sets up golden calves at Bethel and Dan. The prophet Hosea, writing in the 8th century BCE, attacks what he calls the calf of Samaria, a phrase that possibly mocks the exact same divine epithet that appears in this inscription, Yahweh of Samaria. So Thomas's point is that the names line up, the imagery lines up, and the pose lines up. A calf-like male figure standing next to a smaller female partner, drawn in a husband and wife pose, with an inscription above them invoking Yahweh of Samaria and his Asherah. For scholars such as him, this is the inscription captioning the image. Moreover, on the reverse side of the same pot, there's a stylized tree flanked by two ibexes nibbling its branches. Thomas reads this as the same goddess, depicted two different ways. The front of the pot shows her in bovine humanoid form, beside her divine partner. The back shows her as a sacred tree. And even Dr. Judith Hadley, one of the leading scholars on Asherah, who does not think these figures represent God and Asherah, does think this tree represents her. Now, of course, not every scholar is convinced. The best interpretation still has its defenders, but Thomas's analysis is the most detailed version of the God and Asherah reading currently in print. For our purposes, though, the inscription is more important, and while there is a lot of debate over the text itself, basically everyone agrees it mentions the God of Israel and Asherah. The real question is, what is meant by Asherah, and scholars here split into two main readings. The first reading takes the word as a common noun, not a proper name. Under this reading, his Asherah refers to the cult object, which, as we've seen, was probably some sort of wooden pole or stylized tree linked with the goddess. Less provocative than a divine wife, but still significant. If this reading is correct, we'd have an archaeological reference to the exact kind of object the Hebrew Bible repeatedly condemns. The second reading, which I think is the more common reading among scholars, treats the word as the goddess's name, though some scholars argue the grammar can be read without a possessive sense, and the inscription simply names her directly. I bless you by Yahweh of Samaria and by Asherah, instead of his Asherah, so no possessive, just two gods mentioned side by side. But whichever reading is grammatically correct, this is still evidence of ordinary Israelites and not just royal scribes or temple priests offering blessings in the name of the God of Israel and Asherah on a storage jar at a remote way station. So let's put this all together. In Canaanite mythology, Atharat is unambiguously the consort of El, the high god of the Canaanites, the father of the divine assembly. She is his queen, the mother of his 70 sons, the figure who legitimizes kingship. And most scholars now argue that as Israelite religion developed, the God of Israel absorbed the role and attributes of Canaanite gods, especially Baal and El. The Hebrew Bible itself calls the God of Israel El, and he inherits titles like El Shaddai and El Elyon. He inherited El's position as head of the divine council, which we actually see in passages like Psalm 82, where the God of Israel stands up and presides over an assembly of other gods. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. That's the exact role El plays in the Ugaritic texts, the high god seated at the head of the divine assembly. Given all of this, the inscriptions from Kuntulet Ajrud and Kirbe El Kom suggest he inherited El's consort as well. As the scholar Francesca Stavrokopoulou writes, these appeals suggest that most Yahweh worshippers did not share the biblical writer's derogatory view of Asherah. Rather, they considered her to be the traditional partner of their high god Yahweh, and they worshipped her as a protective, life-giving goddess. In other words, we shouldn't view Asherah worship as a foreign import smuggled in by figures like Queen Jezebel. It's likely more accurate to think of her as part of mainstream Israelite religion for centuries, emerging out of the same Canaanite cultural context from which Israelite society emerged. As William Deaver puts it, this was the religion of most ancient Israelites most of the time. The Bible's portrait of you should only worship the God of Israel is a later construction, perhaps spearheaded by reformers like Josiah. The scholar Saul Olian pushes the point further, arguing that Asherah was a legitimate part of the cult of Yahweh both in the north and in the south, in state religion and in popular religion, only finding opposition in Deuteronomistic circles. Now, of course, we can't know for certain how every ancient Israelite understood this relationship, but the evidence strongly suggests that for many of them, over many centuries, the God of Israel had a consort, and her name was Asherah. And it's worth noting that the biblical hostility toward Asherah the goddess, or Asherah as the cult object, are much later than the archaeological evidence. As I said, the hostility mostly comes from what scholars call the Deuteronomistic literature, the editorial layer of the Bible linked with King Josiah's reforms and the scribes who came after him. So we're talking about the late 600s or later. The archaeological evidence for Asherah, though, like what we see at Kuntulet Ajrud, dates before that hostility was written down, which means the Bible's outrage is a specific attempt to redefine retroactively what Israelite religion had always been. So if Asherah was that deeply embedded in Israelite religion, probably from the start, what happened to her? Well, we've already seen one part of the answer. Josiah's reforms in the late 600s BCE were a massive, top-down attempt to purge her from Israelite worship. The Asherah poles burned down, the image dragged out of the temple. According to 2 Kings, that was the moment Asherah was officially suppressed. But the erasure actually deepened over the centuries in translations of the Hebrew Bible. When the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek around the 3rd century BCE, the Greek translators encountered the word Asherah, and they translated it as alsos, meaning grove, which has the same sense of a sacred grove. The Latin translation of the Bible inherited that translation with the Latin word lucus, also meaning a grove. And when the King James Bible was produced in 1611, English readers opened their Bibles and read about King Josiah cutting down the grove in the house of the Lord. They read about Gideon cutting down his father's grove, and the 400 prophets of the groves which eat at Jezebel's table. It wasn't until the late 1800s and early 1900s when scholars began rediscovering the goddess in Akkadian and Ugaritic texts, and translators started restoring her name to English Bibles. Though, as we've seen, the biblical texts that mention Asherah or Asherah poles are themselves a complicated body of evidence. Many of them are late, edited, and shaped by the theological agendas of their authors. The term itself is slippery, sometimes referring to a goddess, sometimes to a cult object, and sometimes it's genuinely unclear which is meant. The same variability appears in the archaeological record. There's no strong reason to assume that Iron Age Israelites had a single, stable understanding of who or what Asherah was. The term may have meant different things in different times, places, and communities. Assembling the evidence into a single, coherent picture of Asherah worship has significant problems, so translators have been left with a puzzle. Every single English Bible you've ever read is the product of scholars trying to make tough choices about how to translate the original Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek. And learning even a little bit of the original language is one of the most rewarding things I've ever done as a student of religion, because it just unlocks the text. Which is why I'm so excited to offer our new intro class, Learning Biblical Hebrew Through the Book of Jonah, taught by Dead Sea Scrolls scholar Dr. Kip Davis. Kip is a friend of the show and also a fellow YouTuber, which means he's spent years learning how to make this stuff make sense for regular people. Sign up at religiondepartment.com/Book of Jonah. So the way we structure our language classes is by focusing on a text, and you'll be learning to read the Book of Jonah. It'll be 12 lessons, and you'll learn the Hebrew alphabet, the basics of grammar, a working vocabulary of around 200 words, and you'll translate the first chapter of Jonah in the original Hebrew. By the end, you'll have the skills to start reading other parts of the Hebrew Bible on your own. And from my personal experience, learning the original language just transformed how I approach ancient texts. Back in college, my Latin professor once said to me, "Andrew, reading a Latin poem in English is like trying to kiss your girlfriend through a towel." And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty vivid analogy. I think I'd miss out on the sensory experience there. And by that, he basically means that once you read even a little bit of an ancient text, you can start catching things that English flattens, like wordplay. Biblical Hebrew is full of wordplay. You have repeated root words that tie a scene together, you have names that are puns on a character's fate, and translators always smooth that out because there's really no clean way to carry a Hebrew pun into English, so it's absolutely transformative to learn the original Hebrew. The class runs Wednesday evenings from May 27th through August 19th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and for $299 you get the full 12-week class plus a year-long membership with our learning platform, the Religion Department, which means you get access to all of our guest lectures and guided reading groups. You'll spend your years sitting with scholars, reading texts you've heard about but never read yourself, and learning how to really understand religion wherever it shows up. So to join our Biblical Hebrew class, sign up at religiondepartment.com/Book of Jonah, or click the link in the description below. Hope to see you there. In the book of Exodus, Moses reaches the summit of Mount Sinai to meet God, but God is shrouded in darkness. The text says, Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. Though Moses wanted to see more of God. A few chapters later, he asks, "Please, show me your glory." But God refuses. "You cannot see my face, for no one shall see me and live." Now, a lot of readers have taken that refusal as a warning. God's glory is just too much for the human body to physiologically handle. Kind of like, I don't know, some sort of radiation warning. Stand back, mortal, not safe. But when Christian theologians read that story in the first few centuries CE, one of them read this passage differently. Sometime in the late 300s, a Greek bishop named Gregory of Nyssa sat down and wrote a curious book called The Life of Moses. With a title like that, you'd think it was some sort of biography, but Gregory was more interested in Moses as a model of the spiritual life. In Gregory's interpretation of the scene, the darkness Moses walks into and God's refusal to show his face symbolize the Christian encounter with God. He wrote, "The divine voice granted what was requested and what was denied. This truly is the vision of God, never to be satisfied in the desire to see him." Alright, that's some confusing theological speak, so let's break down what he's saying. The divine voice granted what was requested and what was denied. Gregory is saying that the no was the answer that Moses was looking for. Now, imagine if God had said yes the way Moses thought he was asking. If God had given Moses a face to look at, a fixed image, Moses would be satisfied. He would have a God image in his head, and the yearning that had brought him up the mountain would be over. And for Gregory, that is the true meaning of man cannot see me and live. He's talking about a spiritual death rather than a physical death. To grasp God in our mind is to lose him, because what you'd have grasped wouldn't be God anymore. It would be your own image of God, frozen and small enough for the human mind to comprehend. But for Gregory, humans can't comprehend God. In the same passage, he writes, "The characteristic of the divine nature is to transcend all characteristics. This being is inaccessible to knowledge." So a true vision of God is a desire that cannot be filled. To see God is to keep reaching for something that transcends all characteristics. To know God is to know more and more deeply a being that is literally inaccessible to our knowledge. What Gregory is describing is at the heart of one of the most mystical traditions in the history of Christian thought, apophatic theology, sometimes called negative theology. It's a Christian theological method of approaching God by saying what God is not. It runs from ancient Christianity through the mystical writers of the Eastern Church, through medieval visionaries in Western Europe, and into modern Eastern Orthodox thought. For a lot of Christians, it's an unconventional way of thinking about the divine, and the rest of this video is about that logic, where it came from and how it works. This video is a companion to my fellow YouTuber and colleague Told in Stone. He just published a video on Pseudo-Dionysius, the theologian who gave apophatic theology its most famous form. I'm going to cover the method, but if you want to learn more about Pseudo-Dionysius, click the link in the comments below. Okay, to understand apophatic theology, we need to first understand its opposite, cataphatic theology, from the Greek kataphasis, meaning affirmation. For anyone who's ever tried to put into words what God is, that person has engaged in cataphatic theology. God is good, God is wise, God is the creator of heaven and earth. These are cataphatic statements. Affirmative statements. Apophatic theology comes from the Greek apophasis, meaning denial or unsaying. Apophatic theology takes those same positive statements and negates them. God is not good in the way we mean good. God is not wise in the way we know wisdom. God is not even strictly speaking a being in the way that other beings are beings. In other words, you speak about God by refusing to speak about God. You approach the divine by insisting that nothing you say about God is quite right. Now, Christian apophatic theologians would argue they're not necessarily contradicting the cataphatic statements. They are pointing out that those statements are made of human words, and human words are notoriously made for finite things. For Christians, though, God is not a finite thing, so whatever a Christian says, that language is going to fall short. When someone says God is good, you're using a word you learned from a finite thing. A good meal, a good friend, a good night's sleep. The word carries all of that finite baggage with it, even when you point it at God. So the affirmation actually smuggles in a bit of the finite world into your idea of the infinite. Apophatic theologians argue that negation doesn't do that. When you say God is not good in the way we mean good, you're not adding any new content. You're just refusing to smuggle in that finite world. So that's why apophatic theologians thought negations were sharper tools than affirmations. An affirmation says something, a negation unsays something. And when you're talking about a God who is, by the Christian definition, bigger than anything you can say, unsaying is the more honest move. You can already see this at work in Gregory's interpretation of Moses on Mount Sinai. Gregory takes the cataphatic affirmations of his tradition, that God is glorious, God is visible to his servant Moses, but then he reads the refusals as the apophatic correction. Yes, God is glorious. No, you can't see that glory and truly live. The two motions, affirmation and negation, are doing different jobs, and Gregory argued that Christians need both. In fact, a lot of apophatic theologians would argue that apophatic theology should take primacy, because it's a theological method with breaks. It uses words about God while constantly destabilizing them. But why bother with the negation at all? Why not just stick with cataphatic theology? Just say God is good, God is wise, God is the creator, and call it a day. Well, for apophatic theologians, part of the answer goes back to the second commandment of the 10 Commandments. In Exodus 20, you shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything in heaven above or in the earth beneath. In other words, no idols. And most Christians have read this as no statues, like don't carve a golden calf, don't bow to an image of Athena or Artemis, and sure, that's part of it, but apophatic theologians read the commandment more conceptually. An idol, in the deepest sense of the word, is anything finite that you mistake for God, and that includes your ideas about God. As the argument goes, the moment a Christian becomes a little too comfortable with their mental image of God, I don't know, like a kindly old man with a beard or a cosmic judge, whatever it is, they've made something small and manageable, something that the human mind can grasp and imagine. And if you start worshiping that too solidified mental image of God, that idea of God is doing exactly the same thing as that statue of Artemis. In fact, the English words idea and idol both derive from the same Greek word, eidolon, which literally means a visible form or an image. So when an apophatic theologian says a Christian's idea of God can become an eidolon, they're actually sticking close to the original sense. So proponents of apophatic theology argue it can balance cataphatic theology, preventing the concept of God from solidifying into an idol. Every time someone says God is good and then immediately says, but not good in the way we mean good, the idea is that they're loosening their conceptual grip, admitting that their mental image is not the thing itself. They're refusing to mistake their idea of God for God himself. Apophatic theology predates Christianity, and in fact we can see similar ideas in religions all around the world. Mystical attempts to unsay what the divine really is. But apophatic theology in Christianity has two main roots we'll explore here. We see hints of apophaticism in the Hebrew Bible, like when the prophet Isaiah speaks for God, asking, "To whom then will you compare me, that I should be like him?" And the answer, of course, is that no one. God is incomparable. You can hear the same impulse when Moses encounters God at the burning bush. Moses asks for God's name, and God answers, "I am that I am," which many Christian theologians have argued functions like a refusal to be named. The second source is Greek philosophy. In the Timaeus, Plato says, to discover the Father and Maker of the universe would be a difficult task, and would be impossible to declare what one had found to everyone. And in his Republic, he makes an even bigger claim. The form of the good, the highest reality in his philosophy, is beyond being. What Plato meant is that the highest reality, the form of the good, is not a thing that exists alongside other things. It's the source of existence itself. Think of it this way. When you ask, does a tree exist? You're using the word exist in a particular way. A tree is one thing among many other things. It exists the way rocks and rivers and people exist. But when Plato points at the good, he's pointing at whatever it is that makes the very category of existence possible in the first place. So the good can't be a being because it's what beings come from. Plato himself reaches for an analogy in his Republic called the analogy of the sun. He says the good is to the mind what the sun is to the eye. The sun isn't something you can see, it's what makes seeing possible. You can't stare directly at it, but every visible thing in the world is visible because of it. The good works the same way for thought. It isn't one of the things you can think about, it's what makes thinking about anything possible. And that phrase, beyond being, goes on to echo through the next 1,000 years of theology. The Neoplatonist Plotinus picks it up, as well as the philosopher Proclus. And eventually, the famous apophatic theologian Pseudo-Dionysius picks it up and uses it to talk about the Christian God. You see, Christian theologians grew up reading the Hebrew Bible and Plato, and they saw the same impulse in both places. The same insistence that God, or the good, whatever you want to call it, is something different in kind. Incomparable, inconceivable, beyond description, and beyond being, and they began to build a theology around it. The first great apophatic theologians in the Christian tradition are a circle of bishops from the region of Cappadocia, in what's now central Turkey. We've already met one of them, Gregory of Nyssa, but there was also his brother Basil of Caesarea and his friend Gregory of Nazianzus. Together they're known as the Cappadocian Fathers, and they're some of the most important theologians in Christian history, and they all have a deep apophatic streak. Basil of Caesarea drew a distinction between God's essence and his energies. He argued that God's essence, what he actually is unknowable. We can never approach it. But God's energies, or his activities, the way he reaches out into the world, well, these we can know. As Basil puts it, from his activities we know our God, but his very essence we do not profess to approach. For his activities descend to us, but his essence remains unapproachable. He's basically saying that even when people encounter God, even when God reveals himself to humanity, people don't get to see his essence. What we see is what God does, not what God is. The divine essence stays hidden. It's kind of like a black hole. Here's a photograph of the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. Or let me be more precise. Here's a photograph of the glowing matter at the edge of that black hole. The black hole itself is unphotographable. Light can't escape it. So what we're seeing here is the thing's effect on everything around it. The disk of hot gas drawn in by the black hole's invisible gravity, and the shape of the absence at the center. Basil's claim is that God's essence is something like that, hidden by its very nature. So what Christians encounter in Revelation is God's activity, the shape of his presence, and things people can see. A lot of apophatic theologians would argue that this essence, energies, move is the thing that keeps apophatic theology from collapsing in on itself. To continue the black hole metaphor, because the obvious objection to apophatic theology is, if God is unknowable, then why are you writing all these books about God? Why are you reciting the Nicene Creed saying that God is a Trinity? Basil's answer is that you're not knowing the essence, you're knowing the energies. The black hole, remember, is unphotographable, but the disk around it, you can study it for the rest of your life. You can describe it, you can measure it, you can paint it, you can sing about it, you can make a Nicene Creed about it. He would say none of that gets you to the black hole itself, but all of it is real knowledge of something real. So apophatic theologians keep writing, keep preaching, keep reciting the Nicene Creed. They just keep reminding themselves that all of this is happening at the edge of the thing itself, not at the essence. Basil's younger brother Gregory of Nyssa took this and pushed it into the spiritual life, like what we saw earlier in his treatise on Moses. Gregory rereads the Exodus story as an allegory of the soul's journey toward God, and he notices that Moses meets God 3 times in the story, and each meeting is darker than the last. First, the burning bush, pure light. Then the cloud on the slope of Sinai, light and darkness mixed. And finally, at the summit, Moses enters the thick darkness where God was. For Gregory, it's a map of the soul's journey. Religious life begins in light, in the clear vision of God's existence and his activities in the world. But by the end, we encounter darkness, God's overwhelming presence beyond words and understanding. Gregory writes, this is the true knowledge of what is sought. This is the seeing that consists in not seeing, because that which is sought transcends all knowledge, being separated on all sides by incomprehensibility, as by a kind of darkness. So that's the apophatic move. He would say Moses doesn't see nothing on the summit of Mount Sinai. He sees that there's nothing he could possibly see, because God is separated on all sides by incomprehensibility. And that recognition is what knowledge of God turns out to be. This brings us finally to the most famous apophatic theologian, who, ironically and in true apophatic fashion, is anonymous to us, though he wrote under the pseudonym Dionysius the Areopagite, an obscure figure from the New Testament, and scholars today call him Pseudo-Dionysius. Writing around the year 500, the apophatic tradition was already old and well established because of the Cappadocian Fathers, but Pseudo-Dionysius is the first to deploy the technical vocabulary apophatic versus cataphatic for Christian theology, borrowing the vocabulary from the Athenian Neoplatonist Proclus. Proclus laid out 2 complementary ways of approaching the One, the highest reality of Neoplatonic philosophy. The first he called analogy, the idea that everything in the world bears some likeness to the One, and through that likeness we can point upward. A good thing in our world is like the One in some way. Goodness is the trace of the One in something we can see. This is basically cataphatic theology, an analogy pointing from what we know to what we don't. The second way is negation. We can say the Neoplatonic One is not a particular thing in order to mark the gap between the One and everything else. Proclus argued that the 2 ways belong together. Affirmation and negation work in tandem to point at a reality that neither can capture on its own. But Proclus warns, when you say the One is not good, you're not saying that the One lacks goodness. You are saying that our word good is too small. Whatever the One is, it overflows that word. Pseudo-Dionysius takes this entire framework and Christianizes it, especially in his 2 treatises, The Divine Names and The Mystical Theology. He writes, God is therefore known in all things, and as distinct from all things. He is known through knowledge and through unknowing. Of him there is conception, reason, understanding, and many other things. On the other hand, he cannot be understood. Words cannot contain him, and no name can lay hold of him. And because no word or name can truly describe God, Pseudo-Dionysius actually does something quirky with his language. He invents a vocabulary that pairs ordinary cataphatic words about God with the Greek prefix hyper, meaning beyond. This prefix obviously makes its way into English with words like hyperactive or hypertension. So God isn't just good, he is hyperagathos, beyond good. He isn't just being, he is hyperousios, beyond being. He isn't just God, he is hypertheos, beyond God. His core idea comes out in the same paragraph. This is the sort of language we must use about God, for he is praised from all things, according to their proportion to him as their cause. Okay, this is confusing, but I want you to focus on that word cause. By this he means everything in the world comes from God. Trees, planets, people, ideas, all of it flows out from God like light from a source. So everything in the world bears some trace of God. A tree is good in some way, and God is the source of that goodness. A person is wise in some way, and God is the source of that wisdom. This means we can cataphatically talk about God by talking about the world. We can say God is good and God is wise because we have learned what those words mean from things that God created. This is cataphatic theology, and Pseudo-Dionysius thought it was valuable. impossible. The world is full of God's traces, and naming them is a real way of knowing God. But he would argue because God is the cause of all these things, God himself is not one of these things. He made the trees, but he's not a tree. He made human minds, but he is not a mind in the same way our minds are minds. Every word humans have was learned from things that God created. Every concept humans form is the type of concept that a human mind can grasp. So Pseudo-Dionysius argues when we apply those words and concepts to God, they fit and they don't fit at the same time. They fit because creation reflects its source, they don't fit because the source is not creation. Alright, up until this point we've been talking about apophatic theology as a way of thinking, a theological method of disciplined negation. But apophatic theology also made its way into daily practice, especially in Orthodox Christianity. As one modern Greek Orthodox theologian puts it, the apophatic move pushes Christian theology toward the language of poetry and images for the interpretation of dogmas, much more than the language of conventional logic and schematic concepts. And this is exactly what happens in Eastern Christianity. The most striking evidence of Pseudo-Dionysius' influence is actually found in Eastern Orthodox hymns. His odd hyper-vocabulary, like beyond being, beyond good, beyond deity, was picked up in Byzantine hymn writers and put into liturgical poetry. From the 500s onward, Greek-speaking Christians at worship were addressing God using the same prefix that Pseudo-Dionysius had used in his apophatic theology. Apophaticism also showed up in Christian mysticism, contemplative practices aimed at direct encounters with God. The most famous Christian apophatic practice is hesychasm, from the Greek word hesychia, meaning stillness or quiet, which developed during the medieval Byzantine world on Mount Athos, the Orthodox monastic enclave in northern Greece. The practice works like this. The hesychast monk sits in stillness, often for hours. He synchronizes his breath and repeats a short prayer over and over again, called the Jesus Prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. The same words over and over and over again. The repetition is meant to quiet the discursive mind, to shut down the chattering inner voice that is constantly forming concepts, images, and judgments about God. Remember, every single one of those concepts could become a small idol. Every mental image of God is an eidolon. The Jesus Prayer is a tool for getting underneath all of that. As thoughts pop up, the practitioner would notice them and then let them go, returning focus to the prayer. And over time, this was supposed to lead to a kind of deep inner stillness, where your mind isn't jumping around anymore. In Eastern Orthodox tradition, that quiet, focused state is where someone might experience a stronger awareness of God's presence. So basically, this is apophatic theology as embodied practice. And the serious hesychasts, the ones that were practicing this for years, reported that after long periods of inner stillness, they sometimes experienced God as light. They believed they were participating in their own bodies in the light that Christ revealed at the Transfiguration, an experience they called theosis or henosis, joining themselves to God in their lives. In the 1300s, this practice set off one of the biggest controversies in Eastern Christian history. A scholar named Barlaam attacked the hesychasts, arguing that any claim to directly experience God was theological nonsense. God is unknowable, full stop. The practitioners found their defender in Gregory Palamas, who reached back to Basil's old distinction between God's essence, which is forever hidden, and God's energies, his real activities in the world, which we can encounter. Palamas won the argument, and the hesychast tradition has continued more or less unbroken to the present day, and the essence versus energies distinction has become a central piece of Eastern Orthodox theology. Now, Western Christianity developed its own apophatic mystical traditions too, including a remarkable medieval English text called the Cloud of Unknowing, which translates the whole project into a single line. God can be loved, but not thought. So a few things to notice here. First, apophatic theology was never a fringe tradition. Gregory of Nyssa, Basil of Caesarea, these are big-time mainstream theologians writing for the church, defining doctrine, shaping liturgy. The tradition we've been describing is the spine of Eastern Orthodox theology and a major current in medieval Western thought. Second, apophatic theology has its critics and always has. Barlaam was not the only one. A lot of theologians, especially in the Western scholastic tradition, argued that the apophatic move can go too far, that if you push it all the way, you end up unable to say anything about God at all, which makes ordinary religious life impossible. Now, of course, apophatic theologians have answers to that, but the disagreement runs deep, and you can hear it echoing in Christian theology to this day. And third, what we're seeing in apophatic theology is one specific religious solution to a problem that shows up in nearly every monotheistic tradition, and even in some non-monotheistic traditions. How do you talk about the divine, which is by definition beyond anything humans can talk about? Christianity's answer was apophasis, but other traditions found their own answers. All of this was a companion video to my friend and colleague Told in Stone. He runs an amazing channel about the ancient world, and he has a video about Pseudo-Dionysius if you want to dive deeper into that figure. Link in the comments below.
Have you got the audio working? Unlike when I started last week's live stream. That's what happens when you don't run the console for a long time. Welcome everyone into this Friday live stream. We are live. I'm your host.
Welcome back, guys. We have more craziness in Europe, and it spills over into the United States, but it says UK police have lost all control of the streets. Migrants and African men attacking police officers and filming it. Watch this.
Get alone!
Oh my god. They're just watching. Look. Tribalism. It's inherent. I'm trying to tell you guys this. Look at the inherent tribalism. Normally, what you're supposed to do if you see one officer struggling with a perp is you help the officer. Watch. Look. Everybody just shows up with their phone. What's a woman going to... Nothing.
You're going to get into trouble for videoing this. Will you cop yourself down?
Look. Watch what happens. So, guy with the bat, and then another guy. Oh, okay, the cop's about to get help, right? They're hitting the cop, by the way. A woman officer as backup for a man on the ground wrestling over some kind of weapon. Look at this. Look at him. This is what you're. These are the doctors and the engineers you're importing in the West. Look at them. Look at this one. Nobody's helping. Or just doing monkey dances on camera with a selfie to post on social media. These are our doctors and our engineers. These are the people brought into Europe to save Europe. These are the people coming into America to save America from its whiteness. And this is what they tell us.
50 million Muslims now live in Europe. At the turn of the century, that number was less than 500,000, and more are arriving every day. As the people who lead these countries try to do what Joe Biden tried to do here, and that is fundamentally change the racial and ethnic makeup of a nation and make white Christians a minority in their own country. In England alone, right now, 10 major cities, including London, now have Muslim mayors in a nation that was built around the Church of England. Muslims are now running major cities across the country for the first time in history, and the English want us to believe that this is all normal.
The Muslim will come out and he will stand for truth and he will stand for justice. May Allah give us the ability to stand for the haqq.
So this is not the Middle East. It's not East Minneapolis even. That is England. And when you see images like that, you can't help but ask why anyone, a prime minister or a president or a king, would deliberately try to destroy their own country. Why would you do that? Why is this being done? And because European leaders still celebrate our failed experiment in open borders, it failed here in the United States, and because they've chosen to stand with radical Muslims over their own people, it's because of all of these reasons these countries are falling apart and failing as the attack on Western civilization continues. In November 2015, 130 people were killed in Paris, France, when ISIS terrorists carried out multiple attacks in one day, targeting crowded restaurants, cafes, and large crowds. The French did nothing to close their borders. In March 2016, 32 people were killed at an airport in Belgium after an ISIS terrorist attack. They did nothing to secure their borders. In July 2016, 86 people were killed when ISIS terrorists ran down a Bastille Day crowd again in France, and they did nothing to close the border. The border stayed open after the 2017 London Bridge attack and the 2017 Manchester suicide bombing and the 2024 Christmas market attack in Germany, none of this was enough to stop or even slow the flow of radical Muslims into Western Europe. According to the European Union terrorism report, Europe had 58 terrorist attacks in 2024 alone, and no elected official in Europe has done anything to address this problem. Think about that. 58 terrorist attacks almost exclusively by radical Islamic terrorists.
And look who's coming. These are the so-called refugees. Where are the women? Where are the kids here? Where's the women and the kids? Where are the families? Damn, that's crazy, bro. So many women and kids here, right? It's almost like we're importing an army of invaders. That's crazy. Listen to what they think.
The future is ours. Every ideal nightmare of a Muslim Europe will come true. They can be as mad as they want. I don't care. America will be a Muslim country. Russia will be a Muslim country. Islam will enter every house. We have to be a part of that change. We have to be a part of that da'wah. We have to be a part of those ghuraba who stand firm on our aqidah and our practice and our deen and never ever apologize. We're unapologetic. Never ever compromise. We're uncompromising. The future
have in Islam is the jihad that you do with. The only type of jihad that we have in Islam is the jihad that you do with the sword. That's the best type of jihad. We actually have...
This is in America. This is a Sunni scholar in NYC.
Our children in this way, that each and every one of us is supposed to dream of the opportunity of engaging in jihad with the enemy. You're supposed to want to lock horns with the bad guys. We actually have hadith. It says this: Man mata, whoever dies, walam yaghzu, and doesn't fight in the way of Allah, walam yuhaddith nafsa, and doesn't have that conversation with himself that, oh Allah, between me and you, I do want to lock horns with your enemies. This person, mata ala shu'batin min nifaq. If somebody is not like that, if they're not a mujahid and don't want to be a mujahid, this person dies on a branch of nifaq. So this is very important.
Because it's important that you have this fire in your heart, this willingness to always be willing, to give yourself for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if you're not able to perform that armed struggle, and because not having this ambition, my dear respected brothers and sisters, the willingness to give yourself for the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fighting in the sake, not having that desire is in and of itself blameworthy. Whoever dies not having fought in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or at the very least, having thought about it, having had that desire to fight in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever dies never having that desire, then he would have died in one of the valleys of hypocrisy. Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us conditions for victory, those conditions apply to the entire ummah.
It gets worse, guys. So that guy, these are all in the United States. This is post 9/11 world. Can you imagine that happening? So a Pakistani migrant was apprehended by locals in Birmingham after allegedly trying to do stuff with a 13-year-old girl, and the police closed the case with no action taken. He bragged that he had a lot of friends on the police force.
13-year-olds, minors, okay?
No, for all the wrong reasons. It's called infamous, not famous, infamous. There's a big difference. Because famous people, we'd want to go and meet them. You, I want to wipe you on the bottom of my foot.
A prolific women of children.
Do you want to phone the police or not?
The police are coming.
I'm waiting for them.
I've got nothing to say. Right, okay, I'll start reading your chat logs then, okay? Well, I'll start reading
how dare you say to me?
How dare you talk to a child in the way you've been speaking to us?
We dare because we have the evidence to dare. If you have a problem with it, take it up with the police when they come. But they're going to go through your phone and our evidence, and they're going to have you bang 2 rights. And every person that you know around Birmingham, your family, your friends, back home, everywhere, are going to know about this. We will put it everywhere.
I don't care. I've got no friends.
Sajid Khan. Oh, you're not going to have any after this. You'll have a lot of friends in prison. That's for sure.
I've got family and friends in prison.
That's no. Oh, are they in there for this as well?
When they know that you're a Sajid. Nice cup of tea. I know for a fact, Sajid, that you're an expert groomer because you are so manipulative. Your chat is expert level grooming. Sympathy, virtue signalling, constant virtue signalling, asking the child for money, requesting the child an hour ago to pay for a hotel tonight because your flat's got no heating in it. A child, asking a child for money, a grown man like you, taking money from a child, a 14-year-old. I'm glad that you come. Listen, no. I'm not going to say what you got to do. Do what you got to do.
It may harm your defence.
Do what you got to do.
When questioned, something which you may later on report.
Thank you. I'm glad that you
Anything you say, maybe give you...
How long do you think they're going to hold him before they release him? Because look at what happened, literally, I believe, yesterday.
By the ambulance service to Adam Brooks Hospital, where this evening he is said to be in a critical but stable condition. Specially trained police officers.
So if you don't know, an unnamed man, unidentified man, they refused to identify him for the exact reason you're thinking, threw a child into a crocodile pit. Says the police of the United Kingdom have released on bail the man, unidentified, who threw a 3-year-old child into a crocodile enclosure. The child is still fighting for his life. He is in critical condition. According to reports, he was released for being deemed, listen to this, unfit to be questioned. In other words, they're treating him as if he were unhinged to excuse him from his responsibility. If you're too unfit to even be questioned, aren't you unfit to be released back to the public? Isn't that weird? This is how you know the guy's not white. 100%. Do you think they would have deemed a white man unfit for questioning? Or is it some inbred third world face? Come on with the shit already. Come on. At least the Brits, they're not, taking this role. The marches continue. The streets are still filled with people. And there's even reports now. We don't know if it'll end up being true. But Keir Starmer, it looks like he might end up resigning very soon. His party has disastrous results. They've lost tons of seats. Influence. The people are not happy. The grooming gang report has done enough damage that it might be time for him to step down, and party heads are actively asking for him to step down. So he's taking the weekend at families, is what he said, and there will probably be a decision soon. So a head of state is resigning, potentially soon, as a result of the pressure. Do you see? All it takes is going up in the streets. Now, what change will come of that will remain to be seen. And what's interesting is the media will never show you any of this. There's a complete blackout on the inquiry report. There is a complete blackout on all the protests, all the government resignations. Everything is being quietly swept under the rug. They're trying to pretend that everything's fine. They know that the situation is so dire because I want to remind you, they literally have a brand new case that would continue to inflame situations in a 3-year-old being thrown into a crocodile enclosure by a third world migrant. Can you imagine if they released the photo of this guy and he's brown or black? Regardless, he's not English. That's what we know. So he is an immigrant of wherever, and it just adds fuel to the fire of the send them all back. All of them, their families, their kids, everybody who came here in the last 20 plus years, whether you got your paperwork legally or illegally, nobody gives a shit. You got to go because the good ones argument isn't worth it anymore. We don't care that some of them are good. You all have to go because there's too many bad mixed among you. And it is fatiguing to try to figure out which one of you isn't a murderous savage. That's just what the thoughts of the natives are. Now you can say, but that's not fair. I came here legally. I'm one of the good ones. No one gives a shit anymore. Your community produces too many criminals, rapists, gang members, too much violence, too much degeneracy, not enough integration, and no respect for the culture of the people whose lands you live in, and were gracious enough to give you a roof over your head, food, stipends, clothes, cell phones, and a new path of life that is free from the horrors of the homeland that you come from, that you ran away from, that you refugeed from. Yeah? And still, you don't do enough to police your own communities, to make sure your own people aren't making themselves a nuisance for the natives. And yes, the conversation will shift from, send the bad actors home to all of you must go. I'm just telling you where it's going and how most people are feeling. Okay? So yeah, you good ones, you're gonna go home too eventually. I guarantee it. This stuff continues. You will all be sent home because the people, it's like being a guest in somebody's house. How many times do you watch him knock over a glass? Leave the seats pulled, the table messed up, your carpet dirty, your toilet bowl unflushed. How many, your toothpaste tube opened up and toothpaste all over the place, your fridge raided and empty, and how much longer do you tolerate that kind of behavior? And you can say, well, one of the roommates are good, but the other two are bad, and the other two are causing most of the problems. And at the end of the day, you get so sick and tired of it that you say, you know what? I want to be left alone. I don't care that one of them's good. You all have to go. I want my country back. I want my house back. I want everything in order again, for me, by me, with none of you in here. Don't care that one was good, but the other 2, 3 were bad. Like, you all have to go. And that's just a normal reaction. Now, the second question that Europeans and Americans have to ask themselves is, who's funding this? Who is bringing in the millions? Who's giving them the cell phone? Who are these NGOs? Where's the UN getting its money to do this? How many of these groups operate out of Israel? How many of these human rights watches are directly tied to Israel? Barbara Spector seems to say they have a central hand in all of the mass immigration, that Europe is going to have to get used to being a diverse country, or a diverse continent. All European countries must be diversified. And she says the Jews will have a central hand in implementing the diversification of Europe. I didn't say that. Barbara Spector did. You can listen to it yourself right here.
At this point in time, Europe has not yet learned. I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
Is it Europe will not survive, or Israel will not survive? Because it sure seems like Israel's afraid of Europe and they want to destroy Europeans for the past, like, Rome burning their temple down. Weird how all of this is always tied to history on a people that are very religious. Extremely so. They identify themselves not just ethnically, but on a religious level. It's part of their core identity. And they always obsess about the Roman Empire and what has happened to them, and rebuilding their temples and all of this stuff, and all Europeans are to blame. And they say on social media that anti-Semitism is in a European's blood. They make genetic arguments for their superiority. And so this is her, Barbara Spector, saying exactly in 2015 what turns out to be more and more true. We are now in 2026. Where's the money coming from? Who are the people playing a central role in this? What governments pay homage to Israel? How much of that, donor money, special interest money, oligarch money comes from certain people, and where are they from? And find out who took the money. Those are traitors. And find out who sold their country out. Those are traitors. And then declare out in the open who the real enemy is of Europe and Europeans, based on who's funding all of this destruction. And America, by extension, and Canada, and Australia. Every Western white country who has to deal with this all happening in tandem, synchronized. This isn't an accident. This is driven. This was engineered. This planned and implemented. This has the smell of somebody or some people implementing this, instituting it. This is a human invention. This didn't happen by, it's not happenstance that everywhere in the West just decided to open borders. There was a directive handed down from some people who instituted a plan to usher in the destruction and the weakening of the West. Just ask the questions and start looking where the money and the influence is from. And that's one piece of the puzzle. You can't stay at the ground level and focus on just the Africans and Middle Easterners coming into the country. Go layers further. Who brought them in? Who lets them pass? Where does the money come from? Who's funding the immigration? Who's funding the idea of diversity, of DEI, of multiculturalism? Who pushes the ideology on us and who funds it? Start asking those questions.
Back in the early days of the war, it was very chaotic. No one really knew what the hell was going on. I showed up and essentially they were like, well, do you have combat experience? I was like, well, I have some combat in Africa. It's not maybe the same caliber of combat here, but I fought a little bit before. And they're like, okay, you're going to the GUR. My call sign is Grizzly. I'm the team leader of Med Team Alpha. I've been in Ukraine since basically the beginning of the war, about April 2022, and I've been serving with this unit the whole time. I have a previous military background, 6 years in the French Foreign Legion. There are a lot of Ukrainians in the French Foreign Legion as well, and I made a lot of friends during my time there. I finished my contract there, left and became a civilian for about 2 years. And then the war in Ukraine, the full-scale invasion, started in February. A lot of my previous comrades, my previous friends that I had served with in the French Legion who were Ukrainian came back to help defend their homeland. And they were all telling me, come on, come back, come help us. So I was like, all right, I'll come back for a few months. I'll come with you for a few months and help you guys out. A couple months turned into a couple years, and I'm still here, and I have no intention of going back now. So yeah. Yeah, so my team, Med Team Alpha, we're primarily a medical support unit. We're with the 1st Squadron of the GUR Legion, and we attach to basically everyone, infantry, drone teams, mortar teams, everyone. We provide medical support. This means we get into a lot of action sometimes, especially our guys who attach to the infantry teams. My first mission was just some recon mission in the Mykolaiv area. Not a whole lot happened. But then my second mission, we got sent directly to Severodonetsk at the time, which was literally the hell of all hells. I had no idea what was going on. All I saw was the map said we were surrounded, and we went straight in, and pretty much immediately got into an 8-hour gunfight, which was pretty wild, honestly, as a first experience of conflict.
Там є куди виходити, можна гранатомета назад поставити. 6. Все? Да. Нет. Вот что, давай. Став. Я вже 2 рази був під обстрілом. На 3-й. Міша.
All right, man. Thanks.
О, я сам, да. Давайте. Де Андрюха? Андрюха!
Bonjour.
Можна Андрюха сади? Сюда, блядь, сади. Отак. Буде срати.
I would say the war changes pretty significantly every year or so. In 2022, it was like our time to shine. We had a lot of ex-NATO Special Forces guys on our team at the time. We had a lot of really good, smart, qualified infantry guys. And we were able to do like really good infantry work because drones were like, you'd see a Mavic and you'd be like, wow, that's really cool. It was like once in a blue moon, you'd never see drones. The Russians didn't have night vision, they were very ill prepared, and like we were able to do a lot of really good work, get into a lot of good fights, and get a lot of good results.
Назад. Сам'ю. Окей. Олег, привіт, Джош.
Давайте, трубы, пошли. Да. Оп.
Матадор.
Мамука не выходит? Вообще никуда не выходит. Так, все это прочистили. Все вот это сзади прочистили. GoPro start recording. GoPro start recording.
Friendly right side, friendly right side, friendly right
Friendly's
side.
on the right.
map, I guess.
Высокий заряд батареи.
Je sais pas.
Go down.
Go down. GoPro stop recording. Granat.
Vas-y, tire. Je prends.
Run.
Granat explosé 2 mètres de mort là. Voilà.
Kurva!
Allô, les gars, à droite! Les gars, à droite, tire rien!
Communicating English, what you see. What do you follow?
Oh, блядь! We didn't see anything! We just want to
Okay, then we'll recover. Okay, fine.
No, not bad.
Ok.
Le problème, c'est que la grenade, il tombe juste là.
Oui, c'était ici avant de 5 mètres, kurva. Ça tue. Kurva, il va exploser cette porte. Ça tête. Tire. Kurva! Kurva! Kurva!
Là.
Ah, c'est une femme ou ça, hein?
Allez, travaille, Tinko!
Fucking shoot back. No. Hey, essaye où on a, il ne faut pas poser de mal, je pense.
Can you see him? No.
Be very careful, they're fucking shooting grenades and landing right next to us. Those are friendlies. It's down the street to the left.
Be careful because they hit the left. Yeah. Shoot. Up. Si, Misha, viens ma gueulante pour le suite. Je vais bomber sa gueule parce que ça t'irrite.
Je sais. Et ils savent qu'on est là, donc là,
oui.
Il faut pas faire comme le Syrien qui fait le tour des portes là. Ils ont tapé la porte avec les balles.
Misha,
il y a une grenade qui a explosé dans ma gueule.
Kurwa, j'ai tout.
ce n'est pas loi.
Non, pas du tout. Pas du tout.
You get a text?
Yeah, Lou. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Lou.
Il est là. Lou!
C'est Vano.
Vano t'appelle.
Ici, là-haut.
No, text. Don't shoot.
It's fucking...
They know where we are. They're hitting the fucking door.
Bro, there was 2 fucking brothers.
I'm right behind you.
Go.
Go.
Cover.
All right, I'm coming up.
Do you want us to come up? You want you guys come here? We're backing out of here. Coming up. Come on.
Coming.
All right, Josh, I'm going to fire 2 shots. I'm going to drop up, run past you, okay?
Okay.
Set, go. Yeah, let's go. There's a fucking enemy tank over here.
Yeah, I hear it.
We have one mate down.
Okay. Now we should run fast.
We got it. Okay, good.
Move over. Okay, move.
We good?
Yeah. Okay, Jason.
Let's go.
Uh, 23 came around, that started to change. We started to see drones being used to direct artillery fire, and it started to become a kind of a big problem. We weren't able to do as nearly as much infantry work as we were used to do before because we get spotted. You know, we started to have trouble getting in and out of places. Honestly, compared to the fights we have these days, I long for the days of Bakhmut because the drone threat was so much less back then. It's kind of strange. It feels strange saying it that way. But the days of Bakhmut were the easy days compared to the stuff we have to deal with now. But it wasn't the cakewalk. This is all comparative. we would do like several week-long rotations in the city as a Kazavac and like a CCP crew. So it'd be 2 of us guys from Red Team Alpha, and we would just, we had basically a constant stream of casualties. There was a point for like, I believe I didn't sleep for 2 or 3 days because like we'd finish with 1 casualty, package them up, get them out, and then another one would show up, or several would show up, and oftentimes in really bad shape. Mostly Ukrainians, just because there's a big Ukrainian presence in Bakhmut, obviously, at the time.
How does this open, dude? Open the back. Oh man, what is this? Suka. Charlie? Okay. Давай, давай. Charlie, come. We're at Charlie.
Okay, okay. We are at Charlie. We are at Charlie. Where are you guys located?
Yeah, this is Charlie.
Where are you guys located? We are at Charlie now.
Maybe not. Go to the other side of the building.
We are headed to Alpha now. Okay, we'll see you in a couple seconds.
What's that, one more?
Yeah, they got 2 now.
Well, at least that means they're pulling out.
Yeah. Keep your eyes open. Do you see them? It should be this one right here, right?
On the left, I think.
On the left-hand side. Okay, right here. Stop, 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 stop.
Sit down.
Drop the fucking emerald. Drop the... Stop.
He's gonna back up. He saw them.
Turn around, turn around.
Cross my rifle here. Yeah, I'm gonna hop back with you.
Tell him to drop that gate.
Zakryvaj. Ned, blend. Come.
Walk.
You can walk? Okay.
This guy, hey, he just fell.
Okay.
Hey, my friend, casualty, move.
Go, take him, Josh. Go. Get in the max, bro. Hey, you're done. Come. Close this door. Давай.
Get back in the front, Josh. Let's
Okay.
go.
You got him? Давай. Yeah. Where are we taking him to? How bad are they? What's going on back there?
Я барьер. Дошло ли тебе сообщение от медиков? Дошло ли тебе сообщение от медиков? Как понял меня прием?
We're here, tell them.
One is flight. He refused to evac.
Okay.
Don't forget. Then security. Come on.
Get flat.
Барьер, алло, развернут.
Alright, let's roll.
Барьер на связи, Юля, барьер на связи.
We did what we could, kept as many of them alive as we could. But when we're not busy saving lives, we also like to do engage a little indirect fire support, particularly with our favorite weapon, the Carl Gustaf, Swedish 84mm recoilless rifle. Fantastic weapon system, absolutely fucking love it. And we've used it on multiple occasions against Russians in Kharkiv and Zaporizhia. We're particularly a fan of the airburst rounds, which will explode essentially in the air at a predetermined location. Great for clearing guys out of trenches.
Team Alpha, this is ISR. We're ready to take off. What's your readiness?
Waiting for June.
Give us like 5 minutes. I'll call you again, and we'll let you start moving over. You ready to do this?
You fire. I open it. You tilt back.
I cock safe. You open it. I tilt back.
Yeah.
You pull the round out. Stick a new one in.
Yeah.
Lots of talking. So I'll be like cock safe. You open. You pull the thing back. Remember to like hit the little hunya to eject it.
And then I still look in the tube before firing.
Yeah.
Is your GoPro on?
It do be on.
I'm kind of nervous.
Same. This is calm area. We'll be fine.
I mean, as soon as they see dudes with the tube running there and there's drone, they will definitely drop something in here.
Wait for this loop to go. Because I don't care about the ones that are going back and forth. They're doing something else. They won't even see us.
Yeah.
But that one was maneuvering. He's going somewhere else. ISR East, this is Med Alpha. Yeah, get everything out the top.
Med Alpha, this is ISR East, and it.
Alright, Assuming your ETA is about 5 to 6 minutes, we're ready for you to start flying now. Over.
So they're starting flying?
Roger, starting flight.
5 to 6 minutes. We can wait until they're
Estimated
actually...
time over target 25 minutes.
5 minutes total. Yeah, so we can wait.
I will follow you because you know the path how to get there and not step
Roger that. Let us know when you're over it. Over. Let me get my belt position. Also, can you cut this when you...
Yeah.
This is getting in the way of getting out.
One minute out. It's a drone.
Yeah, I know. Just come back.
Hide it.
It's fine. He's going out. It's probably ISR.
Well, nah. It's a big too fast here. Which channel they are?
1. Yeah, help me check corrections. Is the tube clear?
Yes.
Okay. So remember. Pull back.
Yeah, I remember.
Kunya.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and also.
I hit it.
Yeah, like.
I will adjust it. Let's try not to overcorrect to be exposed as less as possible.
As long as the first round is vaguely on target, we're sending it. I just want to make sure I'm not hitting friendlies. We don't have any specific targets.
Team Alpha, this is ISR for position to observe. Please notify us over the radio before shot. Over.
Roger that. We'll make our way. We'll make our way to position now. Be 2 to 3 minutes. Let you know before we shoot. And please also zoom up for the first shot. Over.
Acknowledge. Out.
Let's do it.
Team Alpha, you have a good visual references. White smoke coming right over the target area. Please take a bit to the right of it, and you should be good. Over.
Correct. We're going to start on the right-hand side and move left, depending on what the corrections are. Over. Here's good. So.
Okay, it's a nice spot.
See between those 2 trees? Forest way out there?
Yeah.
Looks about a cliff, yeah? It's also the edge of the forest. It's because it goes downhill.
I'll bring the compass.
Yeah, get the rounds ready.
Where will we be shooting from?
From right here, dog.
Okay.
I'll move a bit forward. Here we got a bit of cover so we can hide from drones passing by. How's the back blast looking?
Yeah. Compass. Sitting.
Yeah.
Okay. 62?
Yep.
Hold it. 60. Wait. Oh shit, it doesn't work with the Carl G because it's metal.
Just point that spot between the trees.
Now it tells me that it's there.
That's fine.
Like there. In between these 2 big trees you were talking?
No, the two ones that are far. See the forest way out there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much there.
Yeah.
So.
And that's like the right side.
Load it?
Yeah, I'm loaded. ISR East is Med Alpha.
This is ISR standard.
We are firing now, waiting for correction after firing over. You got your prod? Stand by. safe?
Okay. Head back.
Yeah.
Clear. Good to go.
Okay. Waiting for correction. This is mid-alpha. Any splash? Over.
Splash observed 160 meters to the left. But you need to take 160 meters to the left to reach the target. How copy?
Roger that. A-firm. Firing. 160 left. Firing. 3, 2, 1. Got safe.
Barrel clear?
Yep. Splash observed.
Splash observed. Same spot. Same exact point.
Load it.
Roger.
Drone overhead.
Yeah.
Barrel clear?
Splash observed to 80 meters left.
Loaded.
We should go 80 meters left. Over.
That is correct. You should go 80 meters to the left. I'm going to be telling you adjustments that you need to make, okay?
Roger that. Firing.
Barrel clear?
How many more rounds? 2? 2?
2 rounds left.
Splash observed still 80 meters to the left and 50 short.
Longer.
Yeah. Give it 100.
100?
Yeah.
110?
I repeat, correct. 80 left, 50 short.
Load it.
Roger, adjusting. He's got to be wrong because I'm going way to the left.
Yeah.
Firing. We're just flashing the whole area.
Last round.
Don't forget to add another 150 or 100 meters.
Huh?
Add another 100 meters.
Okay. 1200.
Splash observed, pretty much the same spot as last time. Over.
1200. Load it.
Roger, last round. I've been steadily moving left. I'm just going to move a bit more left and fire again. And then we'll bug out. Over.
Roger that. Observing.
Okay. Leave the thing inside.
Yep, let's go.
Splash observed, pretty much the same spot. Over.
Roger, we're RTB. Thank you for your help. Yep. Make a run for it. Oh, fuck. Oh man, I need water.
Everyone inside, there's a drone?
Yep.
Took us 14 minutes to wait. I start flying there, shoot all the rounds and fall back.
It's pretty good for first time. We'll have to see what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's just... No, we're at least over.
One of the more difficult operations where our team really started to kick into gear. 2023, north of Kharkiv. Or shit, sorry. Was it 2023? Fuck, I can't even remember. 24. Let's say 2024 in Kharkiv. Lipsy area, just north of Kharkiv. Big forest, a lot of Russians. We were on the counteroffensive, pushing them back, and it was rough. Every infill, we'd infill with vehicles. Almost every single time the vehicle would hit a mine, the tires would pop, something would go wrong. We had to have backup groups on standby for infill because sometimes the whole first infill group would get injured or wounded. It was a mess.
Hold on. Go. Yeah. What about the rest of the supplies? Hey, hold on. There's still stuff in there. Let's go.
A lot of drones, a lot of artillery. You were getting smashed the second you hopped out of the 113. And we were just pushing up this tree line, just kept pushing up towards the objective area. It was several kilometers of ground to cover, getting shelled the whole way.
Go! Oi, they fucking know where we are. Stop acting like the drones don't fucking see you. Let's go. They know exactly where we are. Keep going. If we move faster than they correct, we win. No! Hurry the fuck up! Hurry the fuck up! It's up on that hill on the right. Let's go. Alright, find a hole! Find a hole! Find a fucking hole! 2 holes back here! 2 blindages back here! Let's go! Get in the fucking hole! Hurry up, run! You almost just fucking move, cunts! Head down, head down. Fucking walking pieces of shit, bro. I almost died like 4 times. We're in a really good spot because as the rounds arc over, they'll hit down there. It's very hard to hit this fucking position where we're sitting right now. because they're shooting from that way. Flint 4, you've been to it. It's just a drone. So what we'll do, we'll get to Flint 4 and then the next 3 will take off, continue on, and 3 will stay. Yeah, so we're not a big clump like we were. You want to move? We're doing well, lads. Oi, listen. Foot 4 is just there. Us 3 at the rear, we're gonna occupy foot 4. You continue on. 6 people moving is no go. So continue on, we'll follow on. I've got the map. It's all right. I know the way. Let's go, foot 4. Push down, push down. It's just up on the right. Let's go. Push up. I know a spot. Follow me. Yeah, all the way up. Have you been here before? Yeah, let's get in there. This is not foot 4, but whatever. We're here now. Doesn't matter. Oi, lads, get the fuck inside. You've literally fucking been here before. Get the fuck inside. What are you fucking doing? You retarded? Hey, move. Up on me. We're good, lads. We're alive. Hell yeah. GoPro. We're all on GoPro, bro. Hell yeah. You guys at the front were chilling, bro. At the back, I literally had AGS like 40 meters away. Had like fucking 120, maybe 50 meters at best.
Wow. Something hurt me after exploding, but I don't know if it's possible.
I don't see any blood, man.
I think I'm good.
You might have got super lucky. Anyone else hurt? No. Alright, we'll chill here. The drones will fuck off and we should have a smooth sail back, I'd say.
Damn, how many times we stay here?
Sorry?
How many times we stay here?
Well, I'm gonna give it enough time for, because there's a lot of movement right now. Think about that, we passed the infield team. That was the dumbest shit ever. Yeah. Literally fucking like 18 dudes all in one open. I'm gonna tear apart this AR, but it's all good. We're having fun.
Hell yeah.
It's good, yeah.
That's crazy.
And we survived.
Damn it.
We always survive, eh?
Along the way, a Ukrainian who was in front of us got hit, and so we immediately switched into casualty mode. Started treating him. Luckily, the evac came for him pretty quick. He was alive when we sent him off, but he had a real bad injury. Shrapnel tore right through at the pelvis level, which is honestly a terrible place to get injured. There's not really a whole lot you can do as a medic for pelvic injuries. It's just try and stop the bleeding best you can and hope it's not broken.
Yeah, medic. David, I need you to come forward.
Сава, перебитое бедро, потеря крови, блядь! Перебитое бедро, я хуй его знаю, потеря крови большая. Какой нахуй турникет? На уровне бедра и живота.
Дайте руку. Турникет?
Бандаж.
Блядь.
Dragon 3, I repeat, not past Dragon 3.
Андрюха, ты куда?
Grizzly and Wolf are at Dragon 3 or 2. There's a heavy injured casualty here. Blin. Chance pass.
Negative. 502 is at Dragon 3.
Пчела, добрый кут! Стоп, эвакуация! Стоп, эвакуация! Все простреливается!
Перебито бедро. Я хуй вас.
Де айпак?
Тут полностью. Все уже. Все.
Блять.
Все. Видишь? Перекрываешь.
Парни, тяжелый, на эвакуацию приоритетный. Как принял?
Где я? Тут.
Братан.
Назар, Назар. Навязался.
Полностью нахуй. Там даже тампонада. Ну давай.
Братанчик, у нас сейчас тяжелый приступ. Занимаемся им. Я плачу там стал.
Нам нужен медик. Нам нужен медик.
Я медик, але моя рюкзак не тут с моей дружи.
Друже, у нас я середній стабільний. І ще один ваш пів, вже безсвідомий. Наш медик з ним зайнятий. Плюс.
Сказав Маріо. Маріо, українець, моя дружа, він...
Mario, Ukraine, and friends.
Не можеш допомогти дозвіл?
Він сказав українцю.
Плюс можу. Допоможи мені.
Mari, are you moving to us? Yes or no? Over. All right, I'm gonna yell. You can hear me. Let me know that artillery was near us. Over. Mario, come here. Сюда, блядь. Come here.
Сюда, здесь.
Плюс. Я в окопе.
Get down here. This guy's fucked. I need a med bag. I'm using my iPack right now, but he's got a junctional. It's bad. Do you have the pelvic binder?
No.
Probably wouldn't help anyway.
I can try to do whatever. Я запрыгиваю к вам, окей? Блядь.
I'm just holding pressure right now because I can't do anything else.
Right.
He's fucked. He's still alive with it.
Did you tamponate it?
I put some gauze in it. I'm holding pressure. It's not enough. It's a really
Полностью
big.
перебитое бедро. От живота. Потеря крови.
Может машинка сюда подъехать куда-то? Ближе. Чтобы вышли в поле и его забрали.
Nah, I don't know.
Take his pulse. Does he have a pulse? Is he breathing?
He doesn't. I think he's gone, man. No, he's still got a pulse. He still has a radial.
Keep pressure. Keep pressure on him.
I need TXA.
I need TXA.
It's like sliced open the entire.
Yeah, push pressure. Gonna push some fluids on him.
Кто может выйти на эвак? Кто может выйти на эвак?
Идите быстро на эвак.
Эвак. Кто может выйти на эвак? Дышит. Дышит еще?
Are you pushing pressure?
Yeah. He has a pulse, but it's weak. He's breathing, but like. You don't have a BVM or anything, do you? I think we need to MPA him as well.
I'll give you the MP. Будешь сейчас держать давление на рану. Проверь, если таз нестабильный, дави не сильно, просто дави, чтобы кровь меньше текла, окей?
Еще раз, что?
Будешь сейчас держать давление на рану, на его рану.
Плюс.
You will put an MPA in him.
Плюс. Стоп.
Сейчас, push pressure.
I am, yeah.
Push harder. Or is it super unstable?
It's above the actual pelvis.
Does he still have pulse?
I feel like he does. Not sure if it's mine or not.
Назару свого і теж можемо виберемо. І по можливості наших двох прийняв. Плюс прийняв. 108 може, хай виходять, що може, хай виходять. Не кучкуйтесь там.
It's not bleeding so bad anymore. It's not bleeding so bad anymore.
Продовжуйте руку.
Put an MPA in him. Ти перейди на цю сторону.
Хорошо.
І будеш тримати йому тут.
Добре.
Я прийняв.
Моя задача.
Дави на рану просто.
Давай.
Щоб менше крові виходило. Is he holding pressure?
Да.
Okay.
Панама. Щоб ніч не залишився без раді.
Ні, менше людей отсюда.
Залишайся поки сам. Поки ніч або не посадиш, або щоб він вже з тобою медленно йшов. Я прийшов.
MPA's in.
That
Is he breathing? Does he has a pulse?
Man, I can't tell.
He's breathing, he's breathing. Okay. Barely, but he is.
Start cutting his clothes off.
Try to put a smaller one on his arm. Cannulate him, but he doesn't have like a blood flash, so I can tell if I'm actually in or not.
Not just IMM with TXA, we'll call it a day.
He's still breathing.
Whatever that is, just maybe like 100 up your 11 o'clock from our break. We're approximately 200 meters back or so from you guys. So once this clears up and the situation happens, you get cleared up.
No hemo.
From there.
No other punctures from what I can tell. Maybe on the hand.
I can't cannulate him.
IV him, IM him. Just fucking IM him with TXA, we'll call it a day. Give him only one. Где эвак, блядь? Эвак сюда? Знаешь?
Сюда, но пока...
Ребята, подскажите, что по эваку? Время подъезда. И вышли ли вообще на него?
Is he breathing? He's still breathing, barely, but like... We need to get this pressure bandage on him.
Спейс добряку. Вы вышли на эвак,
Група Панами, зараз сам. Група Панами, зараз сам.
Я спрашиваю, вы вышли на эвак, время подъезда какой?
Да, блядь, тихо. Не добьешься.
Спейс. Выходи на эвак. У нас додж очень тяжелый,
Плюс.
У вас є вогонна заборона? Не можеш щось туди насипати, щоб трошки хоча б настиг, і ви його винесли? Казали ж, типу, що в бригаді є таке. Можеш запросити?
Спейс. Добряку на связь.
I did a really shitty job of packing it because it's so big, but I think we just have to put pressure on it.
Чтобы подавили эту залупу, потому что он всех нас разъебет. Пускай нахуй ищут и подавляют эту залупу, как принято. Ты требуй, ты не говори, ты требуй нахуй.
2 pressure bandages if you can.
Yeah.
Because I used one in my iPad.
He's on top.
In mine. There was nothing here when I got here.
Машина едет? Носилки, носилки. Носилки у меня где-то в руках были, братик. Я не знаю, где они, сука.
Oh, there's a... Oh, it's very slow.
Мужики, его надо выносить прямо сейчас. Вот прям сразу. Ему будут вливать кровь. Там едет машина?
Где-то должна ехать.
Ему надо ставить внутри кости.
That's really bad.
Двигайся нахуй.
Він жив зараз, але дуже пиздец.
Пульс у него очень слабый. Очень медленный, очень слабый. Я не могу ему в вену попасть, потому что у него очень низкий пульс. Ему надо ставить внутрикостники и заливать кровь. Вы, возможно, успеете, если сейчас М-ка подъедет, и вы прям сразу его загрузите.
Это чья? Это его?
Нет, это моя. М-ка моя.
We need to put this bandage on. Get a pressure bandage if you haven't already. Not take this one that you gave me.
We can wrap it with a tourniquet.
Сейчас за руку. Поднимаем. Вы его берете, вытягиваете.
No, that's Punya, dog.
How I'm gonna wrap this one?
We're gonna lift him up and put it underneath the pressure bandage. This is like Punya, but it's stopped the bleeding, so.
Давай.
Yep. Got it?
Yes.
Tighten it.
Yeah.
As you can. Go back around. Other way.
Pizda. Here.
This goes through.
Yeah. Go through it like this.
Yeah.
This will still fall off anyways.
Yeah, it'll...
Как вытягивать? За ноги.
Сейчас носилки. Переворачиваем, закидываем на носилки и вы тянете за носилки его, пока мы его тут поднимаем. Okay? Возможно, будет шанс, если на ямку запрыгнет кто-то с кровью. Только в том случае. Попросите.
Давай, Локи, давай,
Давай, бля.
я сейчас вылазу.
Good luck, boys.
Удачи, мужики.
Thanks for coming.
But we did what we could, give him TXA, wrapped him up, packaged him up, got him out of there, and then we just had to continue the mission because like he wasn't one of our guys. Our mission was separate. He was just a random casualty that happened to be there. We did what we could for him, sent him off, and then kept going.
That way, yeah? David. Psst, psst, psst. UXO cluster. I think there's a position here, David. Just look. No, but like, look. I see garbage. So, Whiskey 2 already hears us. Whiskey 2 already hears us. So just that way. That's a casing. There was an artillery position here at some point. Garbage, more garbage. Yep. More garbage that way. Yeah. Ready? No. Come to my position and hold. 3, 2, 1. I think we're good. Can't tell. Goes around the corner. Looks clear, but it...
Fuck, it goes deeper. Слышь, есть кто-то? Выходи, блядь, нас тут, сука, много. Ты один, блядь. I don't think there's nobody there.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, I'll...
Throw a grenade.
Nah. We would hear them. Yeah. They'd be making some noise.
Just spray a little bit in the corner. Let me stand up.
Close. Clear. I'm pretty sure. No, but there's like half a meter. Dude, quite far. Yeah, it's clear. There's an AK in here. There's another one on the ground back there. Oh, it's got black tip. Yep. You bot. Six.
Coming up.
Back. Go.
Давай, блядь! Давай!
2025, it just became a whole completely other level, to the point where rotations now are sometimes months long, because the most dangerous part of any mission at this point is getting in and getting out. So that's where we take the majority of casualties, the majority of equipment destroyed and lost. So we really have to minimize that, and to minimize that we have super long rotations, 1 month, 2 months on the line, which is really taxing for the guys, but I mean, at least they don't get hit, you know, while they're just walking in, you know? So it's very difficult. I'd say it's only gotten more difficult since the war started. But yeah, that's where we are now. The funny thing is, I specifically remember to myself as I'm, you know, getting on the plane, going to Ukraine, like just 2 months after the war started, we were asking ourselves the same question back then in early 22. Oh shit, we need to get there before the war ends, you know? We need to get there and get our peace and get our action, do some good before the war ends. And that was fucking 4 years ago, man. People are still asking the same question now, and I hope to God that it ends soon. I really do, but I don't think it will. It'll end when it ends. Let's just say that. We're always looking for new people because, well, combat medicine is honestly a dying profession. And I don't say dying as in the need for combat medics is disappearing. It's just that the war has gotten so much more dangerous that fewer and fewer people are willing to do it. We are basically one of the only combat medic teams that even exists, as far as I know, from foreign units. And we're always looking for more people. Generally speaking, we're looking for people with either prior military experience who want to be medics, so we can teach them, you know, the medicine side of things, or we're looking for people with civilian medical experience who we can teach the military side of things. Generally, you have to have either military or previous medical experience. If you have neither, it's unfortunately too much for us to really teach someone everything from scratch. But if you got half of the equation, we can fill in the other half of the equation. And we've had a lot of success with civilians coming over here with medical experience. They're sometimes, honestly, some of the best medical providers because they work a lot on ambulances and see a lot more than you might see on the military side. And then obviously some really good, really solid soldiers who, even despite limited medical experience, doesn't take a lot to pull a casualty, you know? Just you got the brawn and the balls. That's really all you need, and we'll give you the rest.
One, two, three.
Revenge, this is Hot Rod. If y'all have a Mavic hovering over us, tell it to fuck off.
My call sign is Hot Rod. I've been here for about almost 3 years now, in a month. I come from Texas in the States, and I was a part of Med Team Alpha in 1st Squadron of the Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine, Legion. No previous military experience. I worked on an ambulance for about 5 years before coming over here, but no military experience. Yeah, I'd been following pretty actively the war since 2014, just online on different things, and was kind of always clued in. I remember pretty vividly there was a video of an ambulance getting hit by, I think, an ATGM or something, like a very clearly marked civilian ambulance. And I remember seeing that video and just like being like, well, damn, like I work on an ambulance. Like if it can happen to these people, then, you know, if no one does anything to stop it, then it can happen in America too. So I came over originally to do just medical work with NGOs and such, but that didn't really pan out. And I figured my best option to actually put my skills to use was in the Legion. So the very first person that I treated in Ukraine was a Russian. He had only been in the Russian military for 2 weeks, and he had only been in Ukraine for 24 hours. And like that's when he had the stamp. It was less than 24 hours before he got to position and then immediately got captured. There was another one on this last rotation. He had moved forwards into the gray zone with his team, and the rest of the guys on the team were killed by like drones and artillery. But our infantry dudes went forwards and took this one guy prisoner, and he was pretty sick, pretty injured. He'd lost a lot of blood. And then one of my other medic that was with me noticed that he had a swastika tattoo on his hand. And he's like, oh, what is that? He's like, oh yeah, I'm a Nazi. So, you know, I got to treat some Russian Nazis in Ukraine too, which is, but yeah, we do treat some Russians from time to time as well. You know, I grew up Catholic, and I always still believed, but I, you know, didn't go to mass, wasn't super religious for a long time, but when you're sitting in a trench, especially like my first time out and getting shelled by everything the Russians can throw at you, you know, it makes you It makes you reconsider your religious. Kitty.
It's okay, little kitty. I'll protect you.
So I would always pray on the infills, and you know, not necessarily for myself, but for all the other guys. And I've had my very close calls, and somehow I'm still here. There's been times where there's one time, so we were moving forward to the like first line trench. We were going through an area that had been under Russian control but currently wasn't.
Hello. Sure. Yeah. That's gonna suck going back.
Yeah. No.
The guys went forward and they make it to the trench, and I'm like the fourth man. And the guy in front of me trips a tripwire, and an OZM 72, like one of the bounding mines, pops up. And at first I didn't know, because like a Mavic had just gone overhead. So, and it kind of like there was just so when the OZM goes off, there's an initial explosion, which is a little charge that like makes the mine jump up. And then there's another wire that attaches to the mine that when it reaches a certain height, it pulls the pin and then the mine explodes.